Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining our virtual staff meeting. If we were in person right now, I would be playing the song Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. So if you haven't heard it before, I highly recommend it. It's a good song anyway, but I feel like that song really reflects the topic for this next month and even into next month. So what we're going to be talking about this month in particular is the spiritual preparation of the teacher. And there's different pieces to what Maria Montessori called the prepared adult. There's the spiritual preparation of the teacher, the intellectual preparation, and the physical preparation of the teacher. So the physical we'll be talking more about next month. And the intellectual preparation, I don't feel warrants its own staff meeting because that's really more about our formal Montessori training, formal teaching training, formal just education training in general. So that is done on our own. So today we'll focus on spiritual preparation. Next month we'll also focus on physical preparation of the adult. So I've got a number of quotes by Maria Montessori to read. The first one is, if a child is to be treated differently than he is today, a radical change, and one upon which everything else will depend, must first be made, and that change must be made in the adult. So I'm going to read that again. If a child is to be treated differently than he is today, a radical change, and one upon which everything else will depend, must first be made, and that change must be in the adult. So it is really important to be focusing on our preparation. When you go through Montessori training, for those of us who have gone through it or are going through it, there's a whole book that we have to read to kind of do a lot of self-reflection on ourselves. Because whether we like it or not, there's some times trauma that has happened in our lives as a child. And so that can influence and just how we were raised. And, that informs how we treat children. And I always say some parents I see are very, very lenient with their children. And that might be because their parents were very strict with them and they don't want to be like that. And vice versa. And so I think it is important to just kind of analyze and reflect on ourselves and figure out where it is that we actually want to land, and to be intentional about that. So spiritual preparation is going beyond casually looking, and it's seeing what we're looking to bring forth and to see the child for who they are. So there's communication that exists from one soul to another, and this is what brings about the transformation of the adult. This feeling of love is a connection between souls, and the soul of the child begins to blend with the soul of the teacher. This is the spiritual preparation. So as a demonstration, I've got a little beaker of water, and then I've got food coloring. So we're going to say that this beaker of water symbolizes the child, and the food coloring, which is us, is representing us, the teachers. So if we put a drop of food coloring into the beaker, what happens? Oh, it's changing and it spreads. So basically, we are having a soul-to-soul connection with our children. And it's not a question of, do we influence the children? Because we do. We absolutely influence them. It's how do we influence them? And do you want that to look positive or negative? So think about things like, when have you felt a soul-to-soul connection with a child? What gets in the way of connections with particular children? And what habits support or sabotage those connections? I've got a few more quotes here by Maria. The first is any preconceived notions that we have about children as a servant to the child. The prepared adult must be made available to guide them, leaving personal motives out of the equation. This inner work allows the adult to welcome the child as they are today and to also see the child that they will become and to guide them along that path. So I highlighted in that quote the phrase servant to the child. And so this idea of being a servant to the child, I looked up the definition of servant, and of course you think of like kind of like a waitress or somebody that might serve you food or something like that. But beyond that, servant means a devoted and helpful follower or supporter. And so that's us as the teachers, a devoted and helpful follower or a supporter. So think about that, hold that, and be reminding ourselves that we are the servant to the child. Then the next quote is, the real preparation for education is the study of oneself. The training of the teacher who is to help life is something far more than the learning of ideas. It includes the training of character. It is a preparation of spirit. The spiritual preparation requires the adult to reflect on their educational parenting or caregiving practices, to release their ego, and to eagerly begin working on themselves. Self-awareness is a really beautiful thing. And I think it's always important to continually be learning about ourselves and having that growth mindset and willingness to grow. So we're going to also talk about ego and what that looks like in a Montessori classroom. So ego can sound like, they should know this by now. I already showed you. Why aren't they listening? This room feels out of control. Parents need to handle this. Ego can look like interrupting concentration, overcorrecting, talking too much during lessons, needing the room to be quiet for our comfort, and wanting children to comply quickly. Ego often hides inside efficiency, perfectionism, guilty, being the expert, and taking behavior personally. So you might say ego is not evil, it is protective, but Montessori asks us to loosen its grip. So ego isn't a bad thing. We're asking it to loosen its grip, though. Which brings us now to our journals. So I've gotten each of you, thank you to Teresa, one of these beautiful journals that says, I'm a Montessori teacher. What's your superpower? And so on the inside, you each will have your name on the inside. And then what I want you to do is really take some committed, quiet time to reflecting on these sets of questions. There's, I think, 5 different sets of questions, all with at least 3 questions each. You don't necessarily have to answer every single question one by one. You can answer them as like a collective if you have noticed what the theme is, or you can answer them one by one if you want. And so I've already written those in there for you. So the sections are self-reflection, control and power, identity and validation, attachment to outcomes, and humility. So my one note about this is, one, like I said, take the time to actually do this authentically. But also now I'm going to be asking you to turn these in to me at the end of 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from now, like that Friday before, which I believe is March 13th, I am going to have you turn these in, not so that I'm spying on you or anything, and there's no right or wrong answer to any of these questions. I just want to know where you are all at individually in your journeys with these kind of sections of questions. And the second reason is there's going to be a whole other list of questions to journal for next month. And so if I have time, because this took me quite some time, even with just 5 sections of a few questions each to write in all of your notebooks, I may do that again for next month. So I do want to see them. You can just place it on my desk and I will bring them home with me and look through them. And if you want to see my answers, like, that's totally fine. I'm happy to share with whoever wants to see how I answered questions, because I am definitely not perfect by any means, and we're all on our own individual journeys. So that's our topic and our homework. So spiritual preparation of the teacher. Get your notebook from me. Make sure that you're answering them authentically, carving out some quiet time to answer those, and then turn them into me by whatever that Friday before is. I think it's the 13th, to me. And then that'll just give me some time to look through your responses and see where you're at. Also, you will get a CE for this. So yeah, that's it. Feel free to ask me to send you any of these quotes or anything if you want to see those, or like that list of what ego looks like in a Montessori classroom. I can send those to you if you want them. Otherwise, you know where to find me. Thanks, guys.